Yes. Is it translated wrong? Yeah. Take away the A.
Is it proper? Is it proper? Yes, but nobody uses it, so it sounds really weird.
Oh, really?
Oh, you're welcome.
Calling this meeting to order. Welcome to the Committee on City Property. Today is Thursday, February 8th, 2024. The time is 5:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chairman Gonzalez,
Present.
Vice Chair Endelman is absent. Councilman Espinal is absent. Councilwoman Graves. Here. Councilwoman Peterson. Here. 3 present, 2 absent. You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. So, Madam Clerk, if you'd be so kind to read item number 1 for the roll. And I also want to just acknowledge our city solicitor. Thank you for being here.
Item 1.
And
Update.
Councilor Vargas. Excuse me.
Item 1, update on public property capital improvement project citywide.
Okay, so we have 2 guests today. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
If
great.
you wouldn't mind swearing them in.
We have 3 guests.
Oh, 3 guests, yes, our deputy director as well. So,
Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your name and titles for the record, please.
Amanda Conrad, Deputy Director of Public Property.
John Mussolini, Director of Public Record.
Courtney Hawkins, Chief Operating Officer.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, if you can read item number 1 into the roll.
Update on public property capital improvement project citywide.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks for having us tonight. Good to see you all. As you all probably know, but for a reminder, you passed our capital improvement plan for going forward in the past month. Last night, Tuesday night, the Finance Committee passed the authorization to bond for that. So that'll be coming to the full council for a vote. Once that vote takes place, we're going to seek authorization from the PPVA to go out to bond, and we'll be able to start that work. So we have a short window this year to get started, and then we'll continue that into next year. So what Amanda has prepared for you, Amanda brilliantly manages all of this. And you know, when I worked for the city previously, we could have never done this, so I give her a ton of credit for organizing this in a way that is consumable. But she has here is an update on all the previous capital improvement work and can share this and answer any questions that you have.
And thank you so much for doing all that work on the back end. Can't thank you enough. Do we have a motion to enter these exhibits into the record? Moved by Councilor Peterson, seconded by Councilor Graves. All in favor? All opposed? Let's have it. So, yeah, we're curious to just hear updates about things that are happening with regard to the capital improvement plan. I'm sure councilors will have questions, but we'll turn it over to
Yeah.
other.
So this is an update about everything, all the projects that are currently being managed between CIP, ARPA, NIF, across all the wards. As I mentioned, the team is managing it closely with the council staff. They work really well with Kyle Delgado in particular. You know, I think there are some of the projects that were in previous capital improvement plans, like City Hall, for example, didn't have enough funding allocated, and so the new plan is going to supplement that. The DPW complex is another example of that. Public safety is another example of that, but there are some smaller pieces that have been started that you'll see noted here. We can take any questions that you have about these.
I have a question to start us off. I know our former director had an online portal that he was working on. I think it was more public facing with regards to just some of the projects that were ongoing. Is that something that the department intends to continue, or is this gonna mostly stay in-house? I don't have a preference either way, but I'm just curious to hear if that work is going to be publicly shared or intentions to keep it more in-house.
We can, we had a website where it was an overview of each project. We haven't updated it in a while, but we do still have it and we can continue using it. I think it's good to have an overview of each project, basic budget, completion date, things like that.
Great. It seems like there's been a lot of work that's been ongoing. Is there anything that you're particularly excited about or things that you'd like to speak to this evening before we open it up to council members who have specific questions?
City Hall envelope is long overdue, and the rec center money, we're assessing all of the rec facilities to fix everything that is wrong with, say, like HVAC, and just really getting everything up to par.
Deputy Director. So happy to open it up to council members. Councilor Peterson, take it away.
Thank you guys for being here, I appreciate it. Going back to what you had said in terms of the rec centers, can you clarify for me just the process, especially, I was here at a rec center meeting and I left a little confused because especially or specifically related to the recs that have a school right next to it or attached to it, whose responsibility is it to care for the properties, take care of the maintenance requests, concerns, troubleshooting that the building might need, or the rec specifically might need, et cetera?
The recreation department, along with us and PTSD, we had started having meetings to really narrow that down and lay out things like snow removal, maintenance, so that's in the works.
Okay, so nothing has really officially been defined quite yet?
Not yet,
Okay.
in the process.
And I know that's been an ongoing issue for some folks in different neighborhoods, and that's something that I know folks have communicated directly to Department of Public Works, but also public property. Any other council members experiencing similar things, or?
Yes,
Councilor Grace?
I just had a meeting today about having cesarean, school. And the rec is not attached. There's two separate entities. There's already a gym in Harry Cesarean. The community does not want the rec and the school to really combine for various reasons. But it seems like it's being shoved down their throat. And so my thing is, if the community doesn't want it, they have said they don't want it from the beginning. And why are they not being, the designs, the actual different designs that come back with the same designs. In other words, this is it, this is how you're gonna take it. And I'm gonna side with the community. So I am asking for a meeting with the powers that be in all the departments. Because I can understand the ones that are already attached, or the ones that aren't attached, but the community welcomes, but if the community is not welcoming them, and then it's like there's a scare tactic. If you don't do this, where are you gonna get the funding from? Because in the 90s, they did it, this, that, and the other. That's a scare tactics to the community. They're like, oh, so now you're gonna make me take it by doing that. So I am requesting, and I think Mike's setting that up. For me, and others. So I just want to know that we're going by what the community and the organizations and other things and the parents really want, especially in certain communities, because we want to make sure that people feel that they're being heard. and they don't feel like they're being heard. So, that's, I'm gonna keep bringing it up because it just keeps coming up. So that's, one of the things I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought on this little timer I had.
And Councilwoman, which project is this?
Harry Kazarian,
Harry Kazarian.
yeah.
So that's one of the school construction projects, and I know, Joseph DeSanti couldn't make it tonight.
Yeah, the thing about that, well, we should meet and talk it through is when rec centers are part of school projects, the city is able to access a whole different pot of money from the state. Without that money, we won't have money to improve that rec center. And so, if that's the decision that's made, then that's what will have to come through. But I think the intent is to try to leverage this very large funding source that we never have for our recs to be able to provide something for the community that is needed. But, I think I've heard your concerns and we should sit and talk and figure out if there's a way through them or not.
It looks like that's still in design pre-conception, so
There's time.
there's some.
Yeah.
Councilor Peter, oh,
So
sorry.
I'm sorry,
Councilor
another
Grace.
second question is, I know that the time that's supposed to start is supposed to be this summer. But they may push it back into the fall. My concern is, when are we gonna let the parents know?
We should meet on it. As the chairman mentioned, I'd like to have the school construction folks here to get into those timelines so
Okay.
that we can, I don't want to misspeak. And they are much closer to those details, so we can go through it all and make sure you feel comfortable.
Okay, because I just don't want us to be, waiting, and they're thinking that they're going to a new school in September. Not that a lot of the parents want them to go, but they need to go because they can't, because the building's gonna be torn down. But, I think we need to try to alleviate as many concerns and blockages as we can. So I hear what you're saying, and I'll wait for the next, for the people that can really give me more a defined answer.
Councilor Grace, Councilor Peterson, and Councilor Vargas.
A quick question in regards to 444 Westminster. Is that a property we lease or is that a property we own?
That's a property we own.
Oh, okay.
That's
No, we
the,
don't, we
We
don't.
don't
Oh,
Okay.
444.
No.
Oh, yeah,
We
yeah.
lease them.
Okay, so, are we required to do the updates and the upkeep on that property since we only lease?
No, this was a grant we received though, because we do pay the utility bills, so it
Got it.
helps reduce.
Oh,
that.
okay, all right.
It says.
I did see the grant, but I was just curious further if we had to do any additional, out of the city pocket to do that. Okay.
And that's the Joe Dorley Municipal Building.
Okay, that makes sense. So,
Councilor Vargas.
Thank you, Chair. And the city hall envelope, and this $15 million that we have to move, including this
Yes.
money?
Yeah.
And when we going to start looking for somebody to do bidding on all that?
We're issuing an RFP for a building envelope assessment on the next board of contract meeting, I believe it's the 26th.
And, what about the inside repairs, like the chamber has a bunch of repairs on top, it's spinning off like crazy,
That would be assessed in that
that
assessment.
would be included in this package? And I know.
Yeah, of course.
BTW, right, CIT, what about the $20 million that we carry out from last session last
That's
year?
included in this, that you see here.
Is included this 56 million?
Yes,
So it is total is 56 million,
that's correct,
so it's not 56 plus total,
that's right.
because I'd like to be clarified, so it's 56.
Yep, this is the total.
And these is, with these 56, we're trying to buy the new building.
Yeah.
For what, how much is that building?
Oh,
Seven?
it's around, it's between 7 and 8.
7, 8,
Mhm.
7.5.
I will follow up and give you the exact number.
So out of 7.5, we going to have 49 million dollars left.
Mhm.
That's to start working on the new complex.
That's right.
Last but not least, website out in school. $204,000. You got CDBG, ARPA, and council. I'm carrying $120,000 from last year. That's included here or is totally separate?
I believe it's included, I can double check and get you the breakdown of each funding source.
Because I would like to know if they using my 120 and this total is separate, but it's the same project that we worked for the last 2 years.
I can find out.
No, please let me know, so I would like to know if I can have some money to use it somewhere else.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course, keep going.
I'm going on the school building, Classical High School. This $43 million that we have here is plus the $40 million that the ES got 2 years ago.
Included,
Is included here?
yep,
So they only getting 3 million more?
that's for phase 2, I believe.
This is just the total for all projects. This is not the CIP.
Okay,
This is the total across all funding sources for each project.
total.
Total.
And this money is out of the 125.
Some of it is in the 125, some of it is in the old CIP,
Mhm.
some of it is in ARPA, some of it is in, so it's total funding sources for each.
Because we have so much time to use ARPA money.
That's right.
So we have to, like, when you put me here like ARPA, council and CDBG.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna lose my ARPA money.
These are current projects. ARPA money has to be spent by 2026. So these are things that we're working on now, so I wouldn't, these are not the things I'm worried about spending our money on because they're happening. As opposed to other things that haven't even started, you know?
Okay, thank you.
And with regards to the phases, that's also listed here, so we can see if it's in the planning process or in progress. That's helpful. Councilor Grace.
Oh,
And I just want to acknowledge, Councilor Miguel Sanchez, thank you for being here.
So noted.
for the, Nathaniel Green, money's down at the school. Is this for the flooded gym also?
Yes,
Thank you.
Councilor Vargas.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Director, what happened with Jocelyn Center? It's not here.
it's not here because it didn't start yet. We're in the process of awarding it, so it did go over the bid. You mean over the grant?
Yeah, the Jocelyn Center that we been talking about too.
Yeah, it's too preliminary to be on this list, but it's happening.
It's happening?
Yeah.
I'll look everywhere. I don't want to do that thing to me, but. All right, thank you.
Councilor Peterson.
I actually, just an acknowledgement of a lot of the work that's being done in City Hall. I think it's something that's long overdue. And I just want to say thank you for prioritizing that this time around because this is the people's building and they should have something that's well represented and beautiful. While it already is very pretty, we definitely know that there's a couple of improvements that desperately need to be done. So just thank you for prioritizing a lot of the City Hall work. That was all.
And I would like to second that. I think, the whole purpose of these meetings is for transparency and for council members to have a sense of projects that are in the pipeline. I know that this was a group that didn't convene or meet regularly, so just having that ongoing dialogue and communication is very helpful. So thank you so much for being here.
And as it relates to City Hall, this has been a big priority for the mayor, and we actually, when we first took office, applied for earmarks for City Hall also, which are held up in the congressional budget, but if those came through, provide additional funding for City Hall.
One, I'm sorry,
Yes.
I went to applause, one big step is the elevator. That's,
Yes.
so people notice that it's brand new and it's working fine. And now we have to change it to talk in Spanish.
Noted.
Yeah, and I have a question about the DPW complex. Is there going to be any community engagement that occurs with that? I know it's primarily a municipal building, but I'm sure folks would like to somehow interact with the building or folks who work within it. So I'm curious as to whether or not there might be some public engagement or if that's all going to be done primarily in-house.
I think it's a good idea. They've been working a lot with the staff and the staff of DPW, but we can certainly ask them to do that. I don't know if it's planned or not, but I think it's a good idea.
Where is the new complex gonna be?
Do you want to elaborate on where the new complex will be? And
It's in the same place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I think this all looks pretty straightforward. Council members, any additional questions about CIP projects? Things that are ongoing, obviously you can see what's planning process, what's in progress. Things that are currently under construction, things that have been completed. Yes, thank you, Council Vargas.
Director, I know you're new here. Any idea how many buildings do we own, like, that we're not using 100% yet?
Businesses that we own?
No, buildings.
Buildings, I'm sorry.
I think that's a topic on the next agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, so with that being said, I think, we're gonna move on to the next agenda item, Madam Clerk.
Item 2, reporting all vacant building properties parcels in the city of Providence, broken down by ward.
All right, so Councilor Vargas, you heard it first. We're curious to hear just, the vacant properties that are
And I pay that,
situated across the city. What is the city's plan to address some of those vacant properties? I know blight and some of the other challenges associated with vacant properties can be a big eyesore on our communities. And I know that there's a breakdown of these parcels and these vacant properties across the city, so we'd love to hear more.
So I'm gonna start, because this is my New Year's resolution, is to solve this problem. To answer your question, according to the tax assessor, the city of Providence owns nearly 500 properties. That includes schools, municipal buildings, but to your point, it also includes vacant parcels, it includes parks. And unfortunately, similar to the problem we have with identifying vacant properties everywhere, there's no easy way to find them. So our team has started on a process of sorting through these 500 properties to determine what is being underutilized. I will preview that the initial number is fewer than 100, but there are properties there in each of your wards that we should look at together and determine what needs to happen with them. This list isn't quite ready for prime time, but it is close to ready for prime time. And I think in the next, I can commit to, by the end of this month, having something that I can share with you all that is at least a preliminary guess to the things that we should look at. Some of them are like teeny tiny slivers of land between two houses. Some of them are paper streets that really we can't do anything with. But some of them are legitimately vacant properties. And so we're working process, and at the same time, we are starting to make properties that we are aware available to the public. So an example of that is we released an RFP for the school building at 99 Kenyon, the former Carolora School, where we solicited bids to develop that building as either housing or public school. We have identified 5 additional properties, mostly because people approached us and said, you own this property and we would like to buy it. Those properties we are going to bring to the council by resolution to transfer to the PRA so that the PRA can make them available for redevelopment. The reason that we are approaching it that way is that the rules about selling property from the city are in the charter and are very strict, whereas the PRA has more flexibility. So in the next few weeks, you will see a resolution that identifies these, I think it will be 5 properties initially that we will transfer to PRA, and then the PRA will make them available. And then we'll continue through that process, as we identify other properties on this list.
So by,
Council Vargas, no worries.
so by now, you don't know how many properties we have in each one, like, for example, in my ward, you don't know how many we have there.
That are vacant or underutilized. I will know that. I will have a better sense of that very soon and we'll
In the
share it
next-
with you by the end of this month. Yep,
I know we got two, but
yeah,
it's on the PRA and trying to find out, put a for sale sign on that road.
yeah.
Before, no.
The properties that, are right, and if you all are aware of properties, you should tell me because it is, again, it's an imperfect process and I can work with you, but we're gonna track all of these and my goal is that by the end of this year, we will be on a path to move everything that is available to market and things that shouldn't go to market will have determined that appropriately.
Great, so can you tell us a little bit more about the process for transferring these properties into the PRA? And also, who's actively involved in that process and what does that look like? So is a developer approaching the city or the property owner, the vacant property owner approaching the city? And how is the council involved in some of those decisions?
So I think I'm gonna give you my best description, although I'm learning this also with the solicitor's office. So my understanding is that this administration can transfer properties to the PRA through resolution of the council. So we would be bringing forward these properties and then a transaction would happen between the city and the PRA. In all cases, these are owned by the city. At that point, the PRA and its board can make those properties available for whatever, for redevelopment through their board and the rules associated with it. So the board would have to approve it. We've done a couple of these since I've been here and we've solicited proposals through RFP as a way to be transparent and open, cast a wide net for people.
Got it, and I'm sure there are things that you perhaps can't share for various reasons, but what's the process before it even gets to that point? Is the city initiating with the private property owner on or how is that being initiated?
So there is no private property owner. In these cases, the city is the owner.
The city's the owner.
Yeah, so we're trying to determine of the 500 properties we own, what is underutilized and vacant and should the city share?
So, but is that, I guess, if I rephrase the question, is there an external force that's saying like, we're very interested in purchasing this property? That's what it sounded like.
So for the first group, the way we found them was because people were asking about them. There's for example, a property on Potter's Avenue that used to be a park that people are clamoring for. So sometimes they come to the city's attention. You'll know we have two fire stations that have been decommissioned. Lots of people call about the fire station. So there are some properties that come to our attention because of that. Even in those instances, like the only way the city can sell them is either through Board of Contracts or through the PRA.
Yeah.
So there's not situations where we're like directly selling them to people. But that is how we learn about properties sometimes. I'm hoping that we can develop a more systemic approach where we're not learning that way, where we actually know the properties that we own and we're making a plan for how to treat them.
So, and I'm sure it might be premature to speak to that potential plan, but
Yeah.
there's a housing affordability crisis. There is a need to develop more housing across the city. Is that being formulated right now, or is there more information that you can share with regards to properties that the city currently owns and how it intends to maybe offload those properties to make them more developable or more sustainable?
So by the end of this
Use.
month, we'll have a list of properties that we think are potentially developable that we would review with each counselor for their ward. From there, we would need to get appraisals and some kind of external assessment to determine if they do have value and to confirm that they are, that they should be available for development. And then we would decide, we would likely transfer those properties to the PRA through council resolution.
And do we have a sense of the overall assessment is on some of those properties?
Not yet.
Not yet, because that's still being formulated word by word. Councilor Peterson?
The properties that have already been sent out to RFP, do those still need to be processed or have the resolution passed to go to PRA?
Nothing there were properties already, we haven't done this yet.
Okay,
So there were properties existing with the PRA when we took office that have been RFP'd.
Okay.
Caro Loro is the first building that this administration has made available for development.
Got it.
We did that through Board of Contract and Supply because of its size
okay.
and value. That building was appraised at just under $15 million. Those are the only ones that we've moved so far.
And did that already go through Board of Contract and Supply?
We are in receipt of proposals.
Oh, okay, so you haven't made a
We haven't
determination,
awarded it
okay,
yet.
got it.
And so for these 5 properties that are potentially coming before the council, what's been the involvement of the local official there, the council person? Are they aware of these?
They will be before they come before the council.
Got it. Okay. Councilor Vargas?
So when you transfer like the piece of land, right, to PRA, it's going to be the same process as we have now, like they call abandoned piece of land, right?
Yeah.
But it takes from 3 to 6 and 7 months to
No,
go through the process. So when we transfer these pieces of land from the city into PRA, it's going to be more flexible for them to sell it. They don't have to go through the same process.
as the city, yeah, the PRA can move more quickly.
Let's say I have a piece of land between 2 houses.
Yeah,
So how you want to go to offer to these? Are you going to split the land in half? So much for you, so much for this property?
so we're still talking about that issue, for example, like, so the city doesn't have a process for example, making land available to abutters. Or, should we do something at auction because we have so many of them? We're gonna need to determine how many properties we actually have. And then with each counselor, think about the best strategy, and with the mayor, think about how he wants to handle it, because the city has not done this before.
And what's the planning department's role in all of this? Because the zoning considerations.
Yeah, so they are part of, my team review. Right now, I have the tax assessor reviewing this list to confirm that the properties we've identified are in fact owned by the city, and, that there aren't other issues. The next phase would be to work with the counselor and planning to look at each property and determine, some of them are like huge embankments that have trees on them that like probably aren't worth anything.
Mhm.
Some of them may have environmental issues, so we have to go through that process to determine what's of value, and they'll be part of that. And then obviously the PRA executive director is the planning director.
Got it. And if there is a council person, let's just say hypothetically, I'm just throwing this out there because this could be an issue. If they were opposed to the transfer of one of these properties to the PRA, I mean, these conversations haven't happened with the council person yet. I mean, could you foresee that as being an issue in the future? Let's say if there's a property that they think could be redeveloped into a school,
Yeah.
maybe the city wants to transfer it for other purposes.
Yeah. I hope that we can work collaboratively on this, because I think we all are focused on the same things. The transfer has to go before the council, so I think councilors would also, if we weren't, councilors would have the opportunity to compel their colleagues to say, the administration isn't acting in the way I want, and folks could make decisions that way. But Council President Miller and I are working together on the 99 Kenyon property, because I understand that, she needs to feel comfortable with the decision made as it relates, and that's my test case. So hopefully we'll be able to continue that if we all are operating in the same spirit.
And in the spirit of collaboration, I would presume that the council people who have these other properties in their ward would like to know proactively. So I'm just
Exactly.
throwing that out there.
Yeah.
And so they haven't been notified yet? Is that the case or?
We are like, I have literally spent 12 hours this past weekend working on this
Got it,
project.
okay.
We are in the middle of this because it is not easily done. So you have my commitment that before anything publicly comes before the council, we will engage folks and talk about the process.
Thank you. And I know this is probably an exciting opportunity for the director. Don't want to put him here on the spot, but you know, as you think about the plans in the future, what are the potential opportunities here? I mean, there's a lot of land or properties that the city owns. I'd be curious to just hear a little bit more about what are the plans and what, you know, what exciting things can happen in the future with regard to the current properties that we are
I mean, I want to manage expectations. I think the number of properties that are going to come out of this that are going to be actually developable is not going to be tremendous. You know, we're like a full city in many ways. I think when I think about the development of former school buildings, for example, I think that is a place where there's a lot of opportunity to do something that is interesting and good for the community. I also think when you look, even if we find 5 or 10 vacant lots that are currently just blighted and eyesores, you know, I don't feel good about the fact that the city owns those lots. You know, I want our team focused on, you know, private property owners not taking care of their stuff, not ourselves. So I think it is a good model for us to show people that we want to move things quickly. And I think this process together is exciting. And hopefully, once we get this cleaned up, like, we're not going to continue to have these, and we can develop processes together over time to make sure this doesn't continue to happen.
Great, yeah, and we'd be eager to hear what the framework is in the future and certainly collaborate along those lines. Councilor Peterson.
Can you talk a little bit about the flexibility that the PRA gives you, in doing all of this?
So the biggest one is on price. The charter says that the city isn't allowed to sell a property for less than 90% of its appraised value.
Okay.
So if we wanted to incentivize a nonprofit developer to develop a building for a certain kind of housing, the city can't do that, but the PRA can. You know, that's why we have often these long-term leases with organizations. I'm working with the Providence CAP agency because we own their building and they would like to own their building. I don't have the ability to give them their building unless it goes through the PRA. I'd have to sell it to them, which we don't want to do. So that's the primary flexibility.
That makes sense.
The Board of Contract and Supply is also like an awkward place to sell real estate.
Yeah.
So I would say that's another challenge, but we do want to maintain the same level of transparency through the PRA. So I think there are sometimes concerns that won't exist. And so, you know, Councilor Sanchez and others on that board can help ensure that when we're making property available, it's a transparent process because that's what we're committed to doing.
And this dates to the last administration, but there was a $10 million equity fund with certain line items dedicated towards helping certain communities that have been gentrified, for example. I think this was in the equity fund, have an opportunity to purchase maybe vacant properties or be a part of that process. Is that still ongoing, or is this administration looking at it different?
Are you referring to the land bank?
Yeah, this was via ARPA.
We've been using that funding as part of the Affordable Housing Trust. Because a land bank was actually never created previously. So that's been used through the PRA as part of the Housing Trust.
And those specific neighborhoods that were named in that line item, is that something that this administration is looking to continue, or has that been scratched? I mean,
I'm not familiar with exactly what you're talking about. There is also money in the ARPA ordinance in the equity fund for home buyers assistance that we are putting out to RFP also. And that is targeting specific neighborhoods that have been affected by gentrification. So it could be that, and but that's different from the money that went to the PRA.
Great. Any additional questions from council members? Okay, I think we can move on to the next agenda item. I'm sure.
Item 3, update on the graffiti task force and the scanning of the department capacity in coordination with the mayors and city council properties.
All right, so this is the bane of all of our existences.
The other thing we're gonna sell this year.
Graffiti, so.
Never been more
let's-
excited to talk
let's-
about
Let's hear it.
All right. So, in this budget, we put 2 additional staff who are working on nothing but graffiti remediation. And I'm gonna stop talking and let the director and the deputy talk about how they're managing those folks. I want to start by saying that the city has never had that before. Previously, city maintenance workers who care for this building or the rec center or whatever were sometimes sent out to do graffiti work. But that meant that then they weren't cleaning rec centers or city hall or other things, right? So it was always a shared resource. So this is the first time we've had dedicated resources. And these guys can tell you a little bit about how we're using those resources. And then I want to talk about how we're going to try to catch up on some of the kind of backlog of graffiti work that needs to get done.
Right now, we have 2 dedicated people working 5 days a week, strictly on graffiti. Since January 1st until February, they did 429, what you want to call it, defacements, I guess. We plan on, and we're gonna continue on with that. I mean, I know she's gonna bring it up more, Clark's gonna bring it up later, but we are meeting with DPW and Parks Department, because we want to put a blitz on the wall, when it gets a little bit warmer, to try to, in as many areas as we can, at weekends. I mean, we know graffiti's a problem, we're using chemicals at work in the winter months, so we can continue on, because usually it's weather dependent. Now we're still doing it 5 days a week.
So I would say that, and there's been a lot of talk about public property versus private property. We've been very focused on public property because technically by ordinance, private property owners are responsible for clearing the graffiti. That said, we recognize, and this is true in lots of cities, there was just an article in the Times about what Baltimore is doing about this. There was a resurgence of graffiti during COVID. There's like there weren't people cleaning graffiti, and so lots of cities are experiencing this. So we want to work with private property owners to clean up graffiti now, with an understanding that it's not going to be the city's role to keep coming back, and that we need property owners to take action to try to prevent graffiti where they can.
Yeah.
So John mentioned a blitz. We have been working with the union, and this spring, we're gonna be making overtime available to union employees who wanna work on graffiti across the city, to just get as many resources out as possible. And so John and Trish and Wendy and John Moore's team are gonna be James Moore's team are gonna be working on that together. In addition to that, we have these 2 staff people. If counselors and wards have specific areas that they would like us to be tracking, we can, you should be in touch with John and we can help do that. Again, what we would ask is that you set an expectation with private property owners that if we're gonna come out and help you, it's not gonna be a repeat occurrence, because we'll just never be able to do that. And so we wanna help them now. We also are encouraging folks to, file police reports, because the police are trying to do more enforcement. There are, Amanda has done a fantastic job of working with the team to feed frequent tags to the police, because there are 4 or 5 taggers, for whom I will not say their name in a public meeting, who are just like everywhere in the city. And they are, it is not a kid who's tagging one place, it's someone who is like comprehensively tagging across the city, and we've got to do something about that, because we're never going to be able to keep up with it. So we're working on that. DPW is going to be working on replacing signs, because graffiti on signs is their job. Obviously Parks does an excellent job of maintaining their parks, and they'll continue to do that. So the team's going to work across departments to try to make a meaningful impact going into the spring. And then the final piece I would just highlight is we put a RFP out, using ARPA funds to do some public art as a way to prevent graffiti. So we're gonna be doing some large city murals in places that are frequently tagged, because we do find that that helps. And we're gonna be, making money available for local artists to do, traffic boxes at intersections, because we know that those are tagged a lot, and they look great when they're painted, and so we're gonna do, I feel like it's like 100 traffic boxes across the city. So we're gonna test that as a prevention method, and if that is effective, we'll make more money available for that.
Well, this is all music to our ears. Thank you for this. I mean, we're all chomping at the bit for just more graffiti remediation. We can't thank you enough for your leadership on this. Couple questions before. So, you're gonna be out 5 days a week. Did I hear that correctly? That's incredible. And with regards to your process, so I'm assuming it's a very data-driven process. You're taking requests from DPW 311. So I guess in terms of how they get out there and how they're leveraging efficiency, how do we look at that? Because I think, just from my own experience working with the graffiti task force, even though it wasn't really a graffiti task force or the folks who were doing it in the past, it's a lot more efficient when they're in one ward and they kind of bang out that ward in a couple of days or a day or two, and then they sort of travel to the next ward, as opposed to, because if they're in the car all day going from one ward to the next and just checking off a log based on the requests that come in, it's just not as efficient. So I'd be curious to hear more about if there's a plan to sort of streamline efficiency, but to ensure that the work that needs to be done in each respective ward is being done in a timely fashion.
And currently, we're based on right now getting information from the council, from 311 itself, and if not, they just said heavy areas. Right now, there's 5 areas: Apple Avenue, Westminster, Broadway, Plainfield Street, Leon Avenue, that constantly have to be hit. So that's on a daily basis sometimes. And what's happening is, like you're saying, it's taking away from the other wards at this point. So we are gonna try to break certain days up for certain wards in those areas. It's tough to concentrate in one area, because you leave an area for a day, 2 days, it's just back again. So it is difficult to try to schedule that efficiently with 2 people right now. But we are trying our best for that.
Absolutely, and I know with your experience at Brown, this isn't new to you. In terms of the reaching out to private property owners, letting them know that there's a true responsibility for them, what is that going to look like? Is that going to be a toolkit, a one sheet, some suggestions as to what they can do to prevent or mitigate for graffiti in the future?
Exactly. As we plan for this spring activity, part of what we've asked the police to do is help us put together a one-pager with their suggestions that we will leave behind, that also makes it clear what the property owner's responsibility is, and gives them the opportunity to work with the police on identifying, if it's happening all the time, and mitigating that. So that effort will coincide with the work that we do to clean. It will also be something that will start to push out on 311 to people when they make complaints.
And lastly, is there a waiver that property owners, private property owners in particular, can sign to shield the city from liability? So when we think about these chemicals, I can just think about, Benefit Street. They might have a really nice historic wall. The person might want, the graffiti taken off, but once you start, pouring those chemicals on, it might break or whatever, what may have you. Is there something that we're looking at to mitigate for something like that?
I would ask the solicitor to confirm this for me, but I'm 99% sure that when I looked at this before, there's in ordinance, the city is not, it's established in ordinance that if we clean graffiti for you, we are not liable for anything associated with that. But we'll make sure that that's true before we start these efforts.
Great, thank you so much, council members. let's go committee members first, so, Counselor Graves, and then, Counselor Peterson.
Okay, I have a couple. The thing about, you said that you can identify if about 5 people are normally doing it. What are you doing to try to stop them? Is there a law? And if so, does the law need to have more teeth? What is being done in that regard? I mean, if we can identify and they're continually doing it, apparently whatever we're doing is not deterring them enough, so.
So this is a new effort, and I don't think it's been done in the past. The law does not have tremendous teeth, so it is something worth looking at. But I do believe that in aggregate, when we are able to identify these people who have done this to so many properties, that we'll be able to take more action. And we've been talking about, being able to communicate it publicly when that happens, but the police department has been working in partnership with us just recently on this, so we're gonna have to see how it evolves. There was never a connection between public property and the police, and so now the team, as they're doing cleanups, are taking pictures, noticing trends, and then sending those to the police for follow-up. And where they can, the police are working on that.
And the other one really wasn't a question, because you guys asked the questions and answered it pretty well. I'm glad that you're going back to the local artists again, because that's what saved a lot of Broad Street a long time ago. So hopefully we can go back and get some of the other ones. And the newbies to come out and do something like that.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, just because we've done this a ton in Ward 1, I mean, the Boys and Girls Club is constantly getting tagged. We worked with them to encourage them to put up some signage to say, this building is being surveilled. I mean, they have cameras on site, so it's a real thing, but also putting some public art made a huge difference. And it's really, I mean, that wall doesn't get tagged anymore, so the more that we can do that across the city, the better. Councilor Peterson.
Yeah. Trying to think about it. Well, I'll start with my first one. So I don't know how to prevent graffiti. You had mentioned we should find ways to prevent graffiti. Like, how does one do that, right? So in community meetings that I've had, one of the things that's often asked is like, well, what's going on with, how can we help? How can we get some assistance? Because my wall, we've repainted my wall 7 times. But never once, I think, have we ever addressed, like, how is graffiti preventable? Would you guys, I'm new to all of this, would you guys be able to kind of explain a little bit, like, because I'm gonna refer back to this as I type up my newsletter to say, hey, listen, this is what we're gonna be doing. This is a huge step forward. So if you could share.
If I could prevent it, we wouldn't be talking.
Right.
Yeah, we should prevent it. I'm baffled by,
Yeah.
the idea behind it. Again, I mean, murals and stuff like that, we can try.
The police department has a whole thing. I don't want to speak for them, but we've talked with them about it. They do have suggestions. Lighting is like a big deterrent, so they'll tell, the wall at the end of my street was tagged like every other day. And I know the council president worked with them on installing lighting, and it has made a difference. They talk sometimes about like replacing fences with like greenery, because it's harder to tag trees. There are things around cameras, obviously, and signage around cameras. So it's things like that, but I'm sure the chief and his team would be happy to make someone available to specifically talk about this, especially since they've been working on it now, and I think they'll have even more ideas.
And I don't think this is the most like ballsy idea, but it's, I from just my experience, I mean, encouraging people to put the sign smack dab in the middle where they would normally graffiti. So as you mentioned, lighting, signage, cameras, public art, having a clear communication on what the police will do if, they catch you doing graffiti. I think all of that should hopefully make a difference.
One last question. Is there any conversation with RIPTA on the bus shelters? Because in my ward, the bus shelters have novelty items everywhere.
Yeah.
So, just wondering what that step is, or if there is that
We've
step.
made a lot of requests about this, and so would encourage and welcome your shared advocacy on this issue.
One recommendation that I had, but it kind of, I understand where you've kind of had a little bit of a hardship, because I have two, is actually also finding murals and painting the bus shelters.
Yeah.
It hasn't been something that has kind of been well received yet, hoping to try again. But I've seen that done in other places and I thought it was beautifully done and it worked so well to prevent some of that. How can we get rid of that on board?
It's a good question. We should talk about that.
Sounds good.
I mean, there are lots of bus shelter issues that
Right.
even Councilor Anderbois has raised this a number of times. So maybe a few of us could,
Got it.
and maybe, I don't know, if there was a willingness for the council to invest, maybe they, maybe they could give us a grant and then we could procure the mural if they don't have a way to do that,
And similarly, with the signage that's just like spoiled with all those stickers,
Yeah.
how do we address that? Is that, are we gonna like try
Like
to
stop signs and
power
stuff?
wash them? Yeah, or
I
is it
think they
just
mostly
like,
have to be replaced.
they have to completely be
I mean,
replaced?
I shouldn't speak for the team. DPW takes care of it. I think in
Yeah.
some cases they have to be replaced. I think probably there are other tools that they use.
Got it. Councilor Vargas?
Thank you. Don't forget audience.
We won't.
The issue is like going back to the property owner, right? We need to create something where the police can charge these particular people who's doing this. They don't have enough, they don't have good reason to charge the person who's doing it, so we have to create an ordinance. Like, how much will be the fine if you get caught? And we have to hammer very hard for them to learn, because they don't care, they just, you doing this here, the other one will make next. So, and then the other ones come out. So we have to start from the bottom, how we want to create an ordinance to go after that. And have the police more good reasons when they catch this particular person to charge them, because I have experience when people call me and say, look, they graffiti my wall, I got proof and video.
Yeah.
The officer saw it, and he said, I won't be able to use that to charge this person. And that's why we have to have a communication with the police department. What will be the penalties or the fines and the charges for these particular people who's doing this around the city? And it's not fair for the property owner that they graffiti today, and then he will come and paint, and then 2 days later, it's graffiti again. And that's why people's getting tired, they're not painting the walls anymore.
I totally agree with you. It's a question that we have to look at, but it's an example of something where the police don't have a lot of tools. That said, there are, like, if we could deal with the 3 or 4 or 5 people who are tagging everywhere, big and small, like, it would make a big difference, and I'm hoping that the police are gonna be able to gather enough complaints that it'll be more meaningful, as opposed to like a one-off all the time.
And Councilman, just that I'm working on something, so I would love to work with you on it, but it's to strengthen legal authority, but also there are things like fines that we can look at to disincentivize more graffiti. So, yeah, I think that should be a part of our sort of rollout publicly, that we're just not gonna tolerate it moving forward, in addition to some of these other strategies that we're gonna be implementing citywide. But I think, it kind of covers that discussion. Ready to move on? Yeah, Jared,
One
last
more,
question.
like, what happens to the people that we caught doing graffiti that came on the news? The mayor did a press release on that from Brown University. So that would be a perfect example to see, this is what happens to them, and put in the media on Facebook, because they were doing graffiti and send the message out. But we don't know what happened, they got released.
All relevant points. All right, then last item. Madam Clerk.
Item 4, lighting improvement priorities citywide based on CIP funding.
Okay, so I know that this has been something that the city administration has been very passionate about. We're curious to hear if there are any updates with regard to lighting improvement priorities. I know that this was broad when it was presented to us. It was more citywide. Is there anything that's more specific in terms of locations where these lighting improvements will go and what these priorities will be?
So as it relates to the new CIP, no. There's work to be done in the planning for those. I think one of the lines was specific to Atwell's. I think, and John and Amanda can speak to this, one thing that has been surprising to me is that there hasn't been a proactive plan for the maintenance of lighting. And so that's why you see so many like capped light posts, because they get knocked down and then there's no money to replace them. So we've done two things. One, we have money in the CIP that I think we will start by trying to replace missing lights. And then two, the council with the administration added a position to public property that was just hired, whose job it is going, one of the parts of their job is going to be to chase insurance money. Because previously, if someone hit a light post, it was no one's job to try to get their insurance company to pay for it. So that's going to take us time to build that process, but they're on board and they're starting to work with John and Amanda on that, so that hopefully we'll just be able to fix light posts as they're broken. But as it relates to the new CIP, really, the priority is going to be to try to shore up some of the places that, you know, if you look at the highway service road next to the police station, there's like 5 missing lights in a row there. So we've got to like replace some of those also. But that's all the planning that they've done so far. And John and Amanda have been doing work that they should talk about as it relates to the brightness of lights, which I didn't know until recently.
Just with a phone call from Amanda and myself, we can have lights brightened up in certain areas.
Okay.
So it's, right now it's at a certain percentage. Once you go over a different percentage, it starts to cost a lot more money. So we're trying to regulate where we can go, where that sweet spot is, and we can bring the movements up. They can do it safer, again, that costs a lot more money.
And what's the standard lumen that we're or voltage?
The number of lumens I couldn't shoot that off the top of your head. I know right now the standard is around 40%. They're sitting at 40% right now. And then once it hits like the 70% number, that's when it starts to cost a lot more money. Plus the harder it turns, the less the light lasts. So you're taking some light off at this point.
Yeah.
Plus it costs more money.
Councilor Vargas.
Yes, thank you. I noticed the one that they switch on my street is less luminant than the one they had before.
Oh, it could be brought up.
Cool.
They're all smart lights.
There's, so it's about that, I noticed that is like a kind of darkness and the previous before,
Can you give me a phone number? I can.
number 15, 152.
Phone number is.
Yeah, 15, 15,
15?
yeah.
And how do you regulate that? Is that, does someone need to physically go out on site and?
It's a computer generated.
Wow, that's
Yeah, it's
amazing.
pretty
It's
cool.
amazing.
And then is the entire system managed by a computer database?
I don't think it's definitely right?
It's, all the regular polls,
Regular full light.
our vendor can log in and increase them, and the change will take place within 48 hours.
Wow, that's incredible. And then are we leveraging things like solar, or is that just too expensive?
Not at this point. We are looking at a temporary solar light for one area that, we're waiting for National Grid to get involved because, not National Grid, New England Energy, because it's underground lines that are damaged and they won't dig in the winter right now. But we're looking into a solar light just for that temporary until that's fixed.
Yeah, and I hate to be parochial here, but the thoroughfares, I know my ward, it's Gano Street.
Yeah.
I mean, the lighting is horrific there. I'm sure we could all speak to specific corridors or thoroughfares in our neighborhoods where we could really use some lighting improvements. So just want to kind
Are
of
you
put it
talking
out there.
additional lighting or just breaking up what's
Bring it
It's just there, I mean, there's
Right.
there's, the lighting is very minimal, and it's all controlled by the state,
By the state, yeah.
yeah.
Get a flashlight.
Yeah. We're working on it, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, Counselor Peterson.
Thank you for that in regards to the lighting. I just, I'm making some investments in lighting on the Admiral side of my ward, in an effort to kind of quell some of the public safety concerns. I think that lighting and making sure that things are very well lit, as you guys have mentioned, deters quite a bit of anything that could potentially happen. So, it's nice to see that we're gonna be starting to make those continued investments on that stuff. And I will be sending you my list of things that have been turned up a little
Yeah,
bit.
just be ready, every time you turn it up, someone's gonna want you to turn it down.
That's true, that's true.
And then, I'm just curious, I know Counselor Anna Bullock can be with us today, but North Main Street. I'm sure she's working on that when it comes to her task force, but is there anything specific that you can share about that? We've had lots of recent pedestrian deaths sadly, and I'm sure lighting is an issue or part of the myriad of issues there.
I've increased those in that area. I've been working with her and Kyle, and then also there's 2 poles in that area that didn't have lights at all. And we got permission from Rhode Island Energy to install them on those poles.
Oh, that's
Those will be
terrific.
going.
Great, thank you, Deputy Director.
Yes,
Yes,
speaking
Counselor
on that, is it going down Randall? Not just North Main, but Randall going down to Charles?
We can look into that too. She submitted me the phone numbers on North Main.
It's dark over there.
Yeah.
You're right.
We'll also make sure the snowflakes are down before March. I'm sure people found that very offensive.
It's still bad now because of the.
Poor Amanda had to live through that.
Oh, it's not great, it's nice.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, we intend to continue these meetings in more of a quarterly fashion. We don't have to meet so often, but it's always good to just have this ongoing dialogue, just hear about the properties that are underway and the progress that's being made. And so we can't thank you enough for your leadership and all the things. So,
Thank you.
motion to adjourn.
So much.
So moved by Counselor Peterson, seconded by Counselor Graves. All in favor? All opposed? You guys have it. Everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Rush it out.
I mean, I think we might have some answers.